So let's get started. I'd like each panel to briefly introduce themselves with your name and title.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kwamé. I am an artist, I'm a producer, and a record label owner.
Hi, I'm Carli, and I'm a former record company person. I worked at Jive Records pretty much from its inception. I now have my own production and consulting company called Fuzzy Bunny.
Hi, I'm Amy Keys. I am an artist, songwriter, and producer.
Hi, my name is Troy Shelton. I'm a record company executive, and my experiences are from Philadelphia, working at small labels like Omni Records and Philly World Records, to Interscope Records, Death Row, and EMI, and many other record labels. I currently serve as an EVP for Grayscale Entertainment, which is a production company which handles management, marketing, and visual production, directing, and editing with my children, Maximilian and Madison Shelton.
All right. Give it up for our panel, everybody. Yes. Now, Kwamé, you've been in the business a long time as an artist. How do you feel about the state of Black music today in terms of music as a creative art form?
Well, I hope I can be as honest as possible.
Please do.
On one end, I believe that the creator has a lot of power and capabilities to be able to create and not have to worry about budgeting or have to worry about the things. We can do things on our phone. We can shoot videos. We can record songs. We can do things on our laptop. So, and the power to get content out as fast as possible and as effective as possible. On the other end, I believe that, and people probably will be mad, Black music has become the parody of Black music, meaning that what we used to use as a stereotype, what we used to use as what we never wanted to be seen as, how we never wanted to be perceived, is now what Black music is, what lucrative Black music is, in my opinion. So, you know.
And why do you think that is?
Because I think that when, I don't ever like to compare past to present, and I can't see the future, but what I do see is that people are very quick to say that they're an artist or they're a creative because of the same thing that I said that is good about the business, that we can put a laptop in front of anybody and now anybody can sing or anybody can rap or anybody can quote unquote produce. When you have that mass amount of content, there's no filtration system. And the things that we're now dealing with 15-second clips, we're dealing with 1-minute sound bites. We're dealing with a visual. We're dealing with a booty instead of a lyric. You understand what I'm saying? We're dealing with someone who says that they're the hottest producer in the game because they have 1 million TikTok views based on just random people's acting silly, you know, and it's not necessarily based on the creativity or the artistic measure of a song or of a record. Now, I'm never going to knock someone's paycheck. I'm never going to knock what someone can be able to bring themselves out of a situation or put themselves in a new entrepreneurship situation. But I feel that when you have that mass influx, like I said, the lack of filtration system, you just get anything and you consume anything. It's like saying, let's not go to grandma's for dinner. We're only gonna have McDonald's every night. And if anybody knows, if you eat McDonald's every night for the whole year or for the rest of your life, you will not end up in a good place health-wise. So that's how I perceive today's music.
I definitely agree with it, and it seems like labels are signing artists based on their following on social media now. So, Amy,
Yes.
What makes music Black music?
That's a good question because we've been kind of sucked into, it used to be Black artists made Black music. That was it and that was all. And it was easier to keep us put in a box because folks like to put things in a box because it allows them to not have to do the work, to not have to have the intestinal fortitude to step to you one-on-one and realize that you as a Black woman are not the same as me as a Black woman, nor are these two the same as Black men, but they will group us all together as one monolithic structure. Yeah. So it used to be that Black music was made by Black people, but then when other folks were able to make Black music, let's say, like, which is similar, and I'm probably going to piss off a couple, 2 or 3 people, whereas our booties and our lips and all of that used to be unattractive until other folks could get them. And then it was beautiful. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. So all of a sudden, our people started to glean from us our product, our swag, because as everyone knows, Black music, we're in the fabric of every music on the planet, quiet as it's kept. But not recognized as such, because if you recognize us as the keystone, as the base of this building that is music, if you recognize us as that, then you cannot look down upon what you've gleaned your product and your success from at the same time. Those things can't exist. So they'll replicate it. They'll never duplicate it. They'll replicate it. But of course, replication is also dilution. So it's never going to be the same. So Black music is like that long convoluted thing, making a long story longer. Black music used to be made by Black people coming from Black experiences. Exactly. That's where rap rose from. That's where hip hop rose from. That's where R&B, which has disappeared somehow from the genre of Black music, that's where it all came from. It came from, Black people have always made something from nothing. And that's what Black music is, and that's what it's missing now. I'll piggyback on what he's saying. All of this stuff, because everybody can sit in their living room now and auto-tune, God help me, I hate that. Auto-tune and everything, everybody's a singer now because auto-tune can fix this. When Marvin Gaye and all of them were singing on the steps of Hitsville, there was no auto-tune. You had to bring it. There was no fixing it in the mix. And that's to me what Black music is. That's soul music, because it came from someplace. It wasn't created as a replication of a product. Now we're dealing with products. Now we're dealing with packaged items. The soul is gone. So that's what Black music is to me, the soul of an experience being placed out on the airwaves in music.
I'm going to pose the same question to you, Troy. You've been in the music business for a long time. How would you describe Black music today?
Well, the ironic thing is there's a dichotomy. You know, I think that the state of Black music, if you're including everything, hip hop, you know, all configurations of Black music, is in a state of exceptional mediocrity. I think that because, as Kwamé stated, as Amy stated, because anybody can do it, it gets done. And when you put something that's half-baked out there, or what you perceive as not as good as, there's always somebody that's willing, you know, to ingest it. And as they ingest it, it spreads. You know, so to me, that mediocrity, you know, gets ingrained, and there's a lowering of the bar. And, you know, I don't not only see it in music, I see it in just about every aspect, you know, of life, from politics to, you know, customer service. So when you come back to, you know, that audience that will basically buy the stupid things or the things that are considered a parody, you know, that becomes the mainstream or the main course. So when you hear, you know, an exceptional rapper like maybe a J. Cole, or, you know, maybe that's a bad example, or maybe like, all right, let's say a Bruno Mars that comes out with this record that's blowing everybody's mind, and we're saying, wait a minute, this is what we used to listen to, but because they've been nourished on such a diminished kind of music, when you hear something like that, it's like, oh my God, where has this been? I've never heard this before. When you could probably go out and go to your parents' record shelf, take out a record, Blue Magic or something fly like that, and put that on and hear the same thing and realize there's a chronology of history that led up to that record being made in that style. You know, so, you know, Black music is going to be here to stay because our experiences are always going to dictate that artistic output. You know, it's about the point of control now. It's about understanding the responsibility of the stewardship of what our art form is, you know, and how do we curate each aspect of it to make sure that it's able to endure in the proper light.
Yes, I agree.
You know?
Now, you worked at Jive, as you mentioned, at the inception, and you guys had some tremendous artists on that label. Jazzy Jeff, The Fresh Prince, Boogie Down Productions, Too Short, I believe, was on that.
Kumo D, Tribe Called Quest.
Yes, so what do you feel that record labels nowadays are kind of scaled all the way down in terms of not having artist development and a creative director to kind of guide the artists these days?
Yeah, I definitely think that there's a lack of artist development. I think that, you know, from what I've seen in consulting for young artists and also established artists trying to get going, really the record companies are looking for, you know, social media numbers. They're looking for, did something go viral? Do you have, you know, even if it was a TikTok, as you said, that had nothing to do with music at all, but they're all looking for a brand. And I think part of what's happened to music in general is two things. One is the audience has changed. When I was coming up, a record could save my life. There were times where I would hear a record that actually moved me, taught me something. You know, I mean, I'm getting emotional about it because music was so important to me.
Yes.
And I don't think that today's younger consumer of music has that same relationship. I think that there are some, like Billie Eilish really can connect with, you know, an audience, you know, on kind of an emotional level. But I think that experience is kind of few and far between. And I think there's, you know, with the social media and also what Kwamé said about it's much easier for anybody to make music and to have access and to, you know, you carry your studio and your film thing in your pocket, you know what I mean? And that's a wonderful thing. But what I think about maybe a younger generation of artists is they haven't had the time to get off their phone, to actually, you know, sort of have perspective outside of this. You know, even when they're, you know, you're broadcasting live or you're doing social media, you're not having a conversation. You're talking to yourself and there's no kind of response, or you can pick the responses that you want. And I think that kind of lack of, you know, human connection and experience also alters what you do. And the other thing is, you know, from influencers to artists that are, you know, that are successful online, they're hyper aware about demonetization, corporate sponsorship. I mean, artists are like little NASCARs right now. You know what I mean? Because how do I, you know, attract a brand sponsor? And I will tell you, I was consulting for a label not too long ago, and, you know, it's, you know, I'm as guilty as anybody is sort of like, wow, what sponsor could I get with this artist? partly to get them more money for themselves, but also to get because using that muscle of the commercial muscle also kind of can help lift your artist out from the plethora of artists there are. So I don't know, but I think one of the main things is the audience has changed. They don't consume music in the same way. But the audience is who's creating the music too, because that's where it comes from. Their relationship with music changes. And I'm not saying that there are some artists that are unsigned that, like I was weeping yesterday to something that I heard from an artist that I follow on Instagram. So they're really, really good things, but it's for somebody trying to come up in the business in the way that it existed when I was working with those wonderful groups. It's very different.
Now, do you think, and I can pose this to anyone who wants to answer, because artists are monetizing their own content and getting brand deals and stuff like that, how useful now is a record label? Does it even make sense for an artist to sign with a record label?
Can I jump in?
Absolutely.
I think that's a very important point. I think on the positive, I always try to lead with the positive. So on the positive note, an artist is learning the business of music. Mm-hmm. They're learning the business of music in real time. And there's a smaller gap of, man, I got jerked. You know what I'm saying? Because they're learning it in real time. So by the time they even get to an office, they have brand sponsorships. They have a million people that know who they are. They understand the inner workings of basically marketing. They went to on-the-spot training marketing school, and marketing and being an artist and a creative are two different things, but now it's blended into one, and they're learning that. And another thing I wanted to piggyback off of what Ann was saying. So that's the positive. That's the positive, and they're learning these experiences. And to answer your question real quick, they don't necessarily need the record label. Let's say this, the record label is an airplane, but they can take their bus, their cab, their skateboard, and their roller skates up to a certain point, and that airplane has to take them somewhere else. Yep. And they cannot you can get from New York to LA on your bus, cab, skateboard, and roller skates. It's gonna take you 3 years. Maybe that airplane will take you 5 hours. You understand what I'm saying? So I think in that perspective, you may need that. But the other thing that I was trying to say is human contact, human ingenuity. You look at, and that's a lot of things. A lot of times a newer artist will never do the history of music. And that's one thing that I've always done since I was a kid. I am a music historian. Before I even had a deal at 15, 16 years old, I studied what the history was and who made what mistake and who did this and who did that. Read liner notes, which don't even exist anymore. Wow. So human contact, take a record like Thriller, right? One of the biggest selling album of all time. And it was never Michael Jackson in front of his laptop doing everything. You know, he did have a studio at home. Him and his siblings and friends would come over and they did make templates, but then walks in Quincy Jones. And then Quincy brings in Greg Philliganes and brings in Rod Temperton and brings in all these different people. And you have other humans, other creative geniuses working as one to do a goal. Even with a great genius as Stevie Wonder, when Stevie Wonder was doing in his golden period, when he was doing Intervisions, Talking Book, Songs of Key of Life, there was a crew of people in there rocking out. It wasn't Stevie playing everything. Right. Though he could play some of the things that was there. It wasn't Prince playing everything. There was bandmates and other people there, and putting human brain power and ingenuity together. And I think, jumping back to an older question, I think that is what's severely lacking in Black music. Yes. And I preface Black music because that don't happen in country music. No. That don't happen in rock. That doesn't happen in indie rock, doesn't happen in alternative rock. It doesn't happen, of course, it doesn't happen in classical You know, it doesn't happen in the bigger echelons of pop. But it definitely happens in black music. Get the little boy out of his bedroom with his computer. He's saying he's 15, 16, don't know what to talk about, so he's going to booty, whatever I'm going to talk. Whatever's in a 15-year-old's mind, no direction, it sounds good, put it out. Come on. Next, a Big Mac, please. You know what I'm saying? So that's my long-winded.
Anybody else want to address the question of whether a label is still important for an artist?
I think Ed Sheeran's a really good example of, he did everything pretty much himself. He worked with collaborators, but he put all his records out, I think, on TuneCore, right? Mm-hmm. And he made a conscious decision to sign to a label because, just as you said, there's a difference between, a bus and a plane to get to where you wanted to go. But at the time that he did it, and I have to say, I have a lot of respect for his career and how he's handled it, because he's his own artist. I mean, he basically does what he wants to do. He doesn't let anybody tell him. The record company they can't tell him what he's going to do, right? But he's used them to be able to take his career to a level that he says, I would not have been able to do it myself. It's the only reason I signed to a label. At the time that he signed, he didn't even realize that he had $500,000 in royalties at TuneCore, just sitting there, because he was already making enough money to do what he needed to do. But he also put the work in. He did it with collaborators. He busked. He would play at the opening of an elevator. But he also had real focus as to what he was going to achieve, right? What he wanted. He was really clear about that. And I don't know where that came from, if it came from management, if it came from just something inside him. But I think that a lot of young artists, sort of, especially maybe in hip hop, don't really have that. Oh. And I don't know whether it's management or mentorship or what it is. But one of the questions that was on the thing that we were having was about, artists dying and hip hop artists dying. And it's one of the things that have made me almost lose hope, because so many of these young artists are using their social media platforms to square off with people about, God knows what, I don't know if I don't know somebody, but, and it's not happening in other genres. And I think that I want to do something about that, and I think that and I'm hoping that the museum is going to be something that helps, and that the coalition of people that are coming together and now talking about these issues instead of because 200 rappers died. I have a friend who has a small indie label distributed by Sony, and he's, 2 of his artists died before they ever got to put a record out.
Sadly, I think that's just really a part of the culture, and rap is a reflection of what's going on in our neighborhoods, our communities. So it's just a direct reflection. Brothers are dying in the street every single day. So I believe that the music is really a reflection, and always has been a reflection of our community, and that's just part of that reflection that's just most unfortunate, and I feel you on that.
Hey, Felicia, just to jump in about what you said about our record company still necessary. You have to know when it's time to matriculate up. And you have to have an understanding of your art and know what you need to understand where you want to go. Because success has to be defined, in today's market as to, what you want it to be. Some people are happy, doing a few gigs a week, being able to pay the bills, and then some people, I've got the music that's going to change the world. Well, you can't come at me with, I got the music that's going to change the world, and not want to put in, I'm going to put in change the world energy.
Right.
Because that's the thing that's going to get you to that record company. They're there as the machine, because there's a lack of artist development, because there's a lack of the other things that used to come with an artist being able to move through the system and gain knowledge and be ready to be a public figure. Now, all those things fall on the artist to come to the label prepared for them to do only what they can do, which is push the button, you know? And if the artist is not in shape for that blessing, it's going to be worse than them never ever getting it. Because if they spend that money and it doesn't come back the way that they need it to come back, they'll never get another shot.
True.
You know, and he's going to be in a worse position because it's going to be someone that was looked at has made it and then has fallen off. It's not good. So if you're not in shape for, you know, that matriculation to an artist deal with a record company, if you're not coming in with your own suitcases of audience, marketing, clear ideas, visuals, very important.
It just seems like artists are more disposable these days. You hear one song from them and then you never hear from them again. So before we get to our last question, I did want to ask, how do we bring new artists into the history of music? How do we get them interested in the artist that created music before they were even born, perhaps? But how do we reconnect the music history with today's artist?
Well, maybe, part of it will be with something like the Hip Hop Museum. Get kids interested in that. It used to be that I wanted to hear all of the things that came before me, and I would glean something from this, because a lot of my style came from me putting together pieces of other artists that I heard. Like if you listen to a lot of the major artists, you can hear in them, like if you listen to Steve Perry with Journey, he will tell you all day that he lived and breathed Sam Cooke. But he took Sam Cooke and made it Steve Perry's version of that and made it a rock version of it. So, and you can also learn from like all of these different artists who went on before who were multi-millionaires, but they brought Mookie and them along with them, and they were trying to take care of the whole neighborhood, and they were spending money left and right because they were thinking, oh, this ride is going to go on forever, and it didn't. Learn from all of that, but they're so busy being told that anything that wasn't made yesterday is no good, that's an OG, that's old school. We don't listen to that anymore. So then you make the same mistakes. You make the same mistakes that somebody had already come before you, and had you taken the time to know your history, you would have known better than to do that. But that's going to take museums like Hip Hop Museum. It's going to take Grammy museums. It's going to take parents. It's going to take others, I guess, folks like us who have already gone through that path, gone down that path, to reach back and mentor, to let folks know, look, this is the mistake I made, don't make that. And know the stuff that came before you, because you might find something in that will make your next song a huge hit.
I just wanted to add to what you were saying. Think about this. Think about every other genre of music. I want to use rock as an example. It's a rite of passage in rock to know your history. So if a kid walks in, a 10-year-old kid can walk in with a Led Zeppelin shirt on, and somebody will be like, what you know about Led Zeppelin? And the 10-year-old kid will be like, well, my dad plays it all the time. I know everything about Led Zeppelin. You know, we're in hip hop, I'm speaking generally, but in hip hop, everybody wants to be 16. You are 55, you could be 65, you could be 40, you could be 16. Everybody want to be 16. You're in the car and you turning up with your kid. You're not playing anything you played when you were 16. You want to be your kid.
Wow.
A lot of times in hip hop, the younger kids that are making records, they don't even have the parent to put them on to the older stuff. So all they know is what their homeboy just made last week, and that's old school to them. Or they know Biggie and Tupac because Biggie and Tupac has been put in front of everybody's face. So that's like, if you ask them who started hip hop, Biggie and Tupac, they started with the West Coast, East Coast beef. You know, that's in a kid's mind. So hip hop is the only genre that devours itself. It's the only genre that eats its elders. And it's never about what happened. So we are always forced to make the same mistake. Because no one, and it's the only genre, it's like having, and this is, it's hard to say it, but it's like having the creepy uncle that lives at home. And everybody knows the creepy uncle lives at home. But yet, when one kid leaves, you send another kid back into that house. And you never inform anybody about that creepy uncle. And the only thing you say is, yeah, he's creepy, but you strong, you from the hood, you can take care of yourself. And then when the person comes out creeped on, everybody turns their head, oh, that's on them. Who's the next kid? Come on, yo.
The self-replicating cycle.
Yeah, and that is rampant in hip-hop, especially, particularly, and in black music, most of all. It's rampant. We all see it. We all see it, and part of this industry has been the same since 1958. Literally, the exact same since 1958. And I use that date on purpose. If you do music research, whether it's from how you get your records played, how you get a deal, to giving somebody a Cadillac and a gold chain. It's been the same. So, and especially in black music. So I think, it really starts with, and I don't know the solution. I don't know how to give a young aspiring artist from Kentucky a mentorship or menteeship, finding them somebody that can be like, well, this is this is that. Like, I'll give you a quick example. I remember.
Quick, because we I know. Got to bring the next.
But like, for example, Soulja Boy, I'm gonna name him. Soulja Boy just came out. He was producing his own stuff. He was starting to blow up, and his manager was around my age. And I was doing an event with one of my artists, and I was sitting with Soulja Boy, and he was like, "You need to meet Soulja Boy. You need to meet Kwamé, because y'all were the same ages when you started, doing the same thing as far as like creating music yourself." And Soulja Boy, it was just blank. It was just no interest, because Kwamé did what Kwamé did and Soulja Boy does what Soulja Boy does. And there should be no connection, when there was every bit of a connection.
Totally.
So I'm done.
Okay, and we have Eric, who has just joined our panel. How you doing, Eric?
How are you? Pardon me, I want to apologize to everybody. I have like an event going on today and tomorrow. We had like a serious emergency, and then LA traffic, it just got a little bit crazy.
No worries, no worries. We wanted to actually ask you about battle rap, and why do you think, because battle rap has been going on since the beginning of hip hop, why do you think it's still so popular?
Oh man, for a number of reasons. I think what modern day battle rap has become is what we loved about traditional hip hop. There's some type of camaraderie. There's two competitors, and one guy saying, I'm better at this than you, and I'm willing to prove it in front of the world. And I think that's what makes it exciting. It makes it exciting. And I think the reason why it's continued to grow is because we're just at a time in music, and I'm not necessarily saying that the newer music is not as good as the older music, but there's definitely been a change, especially within lyricism. As I feel as lyricism became less important, it kind of moved over to battle rap, where you still have guys doing metaphors, similes, and figurative language, and different types of styles against each other, and ways to talk about people, and putting stories together and performing, and just the whole aggressive nature of it is there, where you don't really see that anymore, where guys, the culture has changed as we know it. And I think what we are seeing now is a derivative of hip-hop, of what we know as hip-hop in terms of rap. Not to say that it's wrong, it's just a different expression. And I've always believed that, like, with black music or hip-hop, they just put everything into one category. But like, if you have rock music, you have heavy metal, death metal, light rock, soft rock, multiple categories in the award shows. But whenever it's hip hop, they just bunch everything together. And I feel like a lot of these kids are still street kids. They just have a different expression. Some of them are influenced by different things. So you can't necessarily put everybody into one bracket, and I think that's what they've done. So I think what we're seeing now is just, it's still hip hop. It has energy from hip hop. They're talking about the same subjects. They're just not doing it in the same way. Yeah. And the lyrical part of it has kind of become less important. And of course that's gonna happen, because if the hit records, as Kwamé mentioned, are not lyrical records, and a kid is looking around, he's seeing what does he have to do to get on, and this is the style, and this is the wave of what's happening now, then that's just gonna be what it is for now. And it's just like, even with singers, where you have people who would sing and make bridges on records and really open up their lungs and bring the song home in older music, that's not popular in today's music. And that's just the changes that we just have to adapt and deal with. But to answer your question, I think those elements are why battle rap is becoming important, because there's still an audience who's left behind, and they want to see somebody walk around and hit their hand on their chest and say, I'm the best rapper alive, you know? And I think that culture started to die like in the mid-2000s, like in the early 2000s. Like, I guess the last people doing that were like Jay-Z, Lil Wayne, you know, Jadakiss. They prided themselves on being good lyricists and challenging anybody to kind of come into that space.
Yeah.
Okay, so how has social media influenced Black music?
Tremendously.
Yes.
For good and for bad.
Yes.
Okay, let's start with the good.
Well, social media has impacted it for the good, because now you don't have to be dependent upon a record label or a media platform. You know, if you know how to work the algorithm and, you know, you have engaging content or things that you can pull people in with, you can get attention, and you can have, like you said, you can have influence. So like if there's something that's good that's going on and it's a trend and it catches on, then others will follow and try to emulate that. The bad is, a lot of times, the influence or the imagery that we see, we become so desensitized to it, and it becomes normal, that it can have a negative effect as well.
Anyone else want to address that question?
Like I say, it's a little joke. It's a kick and a kiss, you know. Some of the things that you're able to discover, the good things. I mean, there's always a little joke. I say that, you know, I hang what I call the church nerds, the guys that play for all the bands and out of Philadelphia. I mean, some amazing musicians. Mm-hmm. I say, you know, you could throw a rock at a church and come out with a rhythm section, because you know there's somebody in there that's funky on the drums, playing the bass. There's an organ player running a Hammond, you know, and those are the kids that you're seeing on social media who are singing in those choirs, who are those kids that are looked down upon in school, that have amazing voices, that have amazing talents, you know, that would normally never be heard because they never had a platform. Yep. You know, that's the kiss. The kick is, you know, the things that are not representative of what this culture is supposed to be about, you know? And not saying that people can't have different derivatives of anger or expression, but, you know, we as Black people, like Amy said, have always been able to make something out of nothing, you know? We don't expect the nothing to stay as nothing, you know? And in this time where discovery is so easy, you know, there has to be, you know, a level of importance that's placed on Black music. You know, it's not what it's worth, it's what it's worth to you, you know? And at the end of the day, it's about producing something that's gonna last, you know? Because like I know in dealing with some of my clients, publishing is everything, you know? And MC Boo that's doing, you know, Kiss My Butt, you know, that's not really gonna be, you know, too big of a publishing, you know, icon, you know, down the line, you know? So they're also not as old folks used to say, sending up timber. You know, they're not setting themselves up to have something that's going to be worth money 10 years down the line.
Very good.
I think social media, people have talked about the positive, but I think for young artists, mental health, sometimes social media can be horrible because it gives you a false sense of reality. Your likes, I mean, there are different platforms that are trying to change that, but they're not really changing it. And I think, and then it becomes a little bit addictive, and it can be a time waster and kind of a drug, but also it's isolating as well. So I think another thing that I've had to talk to many young artists about is you have to think about it this way. Don't put your real life out there. I don't want anybody to fake anything either. Like, my whole thing as an artist development person was, I'm not going to make you as an artist something that you aren't. That's not what I want to project in your videos or whatever. Let's talk about who you are as an artist. And then whatever we put out facing the public is going to be also a reflection of that. But you have to hold something back that's you, that's personal, right? And I think, you know, social media kind of encourages the opposite of that. There are artists that can, manipulate and use social media great in a fantastic way, and it's a great marketing tool. It can be, but I think there are so many artists that don't understand that the difference, and that it's a tool and it's not just something. And again, I see, the impact that it has on mental health, and I think that's something that we as a community need to address. I mean, those are my two of the things that, and I've been talking to Rocky a lot about, the education of, artists about their past. I worked with a female rapper. She was amazing, and she'd done a bunch of EDM records. She was the voice everybody wanted. She'd sold millions of records. And I took her to a panel that was Kwamé and Public Enemy, and she didn't know any of their music. She kind of didn't know who Chuck D was. She'd heard of Public Enemy. She definitely didn't know who Kwamé was, but she knew Wild Wild West from the movie. So, and but it didn't matter to her because she'd sold millions of records because, and so one of the things that Rocky and I have been talking about is kind of doing something, an event where we bring together young artists, and there are, not to put all young artists down because a lot of them do know the old records from their families, right? So maybe there's somebody that they want to cover. And so we get them to do those old records. Because sometimes when you put your mouth around those words, it's going to be an inspiration about, wow, how'd they get that flow? How'd they come up with those rhymes? Or in some cases where they don't know an artist, we'll match them up. Because we'll be like, you know what? You probably don't know that you were influenced. Your style was influenced by this other artist and this, these records. Why don't you try to do this? So that's something, I don't know if it's going to be possible, but they also told me that self-destruction would never happen. I'm a believer, and I believe that artists come from this place of creation. And I want to bring that joy back. So anyway, sorry to be long-winded.
And you had a comment, and I wanted to piggyback off something Ann said earlier.
We were talking about social media being heaven and hell. The heaven part is that people who normally, piggyback on what they were saying, that it's giving a platform to those who normally wouldn't have it. But also, by having that, this is where the hell comes in, by having that platform, there's nothing between, part of my concern, there's nothing between that person, that young person, and everybody else and everything else. You have opened yourself and your life and your livelihood. And as artists, I know as a singer, you put your stuff out there and you're like, I can take it. You can give me your opinion. I'm still good. But then you read a bad comment about something you posted. And it's like, oh my God.
Everybody is gangster behind the keyboard.
Oh, exactly.
People are so bold and will say anything that they think of.
And will come at you. And some people sit in their in mom's basement eating ho-hos, and whatever, and drinking 20s, whatever, and they sit back and delight in tearing somebody down. If they see somebody is getting all this, And not everybody's ready for that. And most of the ones who have put themselves out there at that point, 15, 16 years old, are not ready to take that. And being on social media, and then you have the influencers who will put things out there according to what their brand wants. So then you've got new gatekeepers, as I call them. So that's the caveat to social media. It's heaven and hell to me.
It's like I say, this is the game you've chosen, and these are the rules that apply.
Yeah.
You've got to be prepared for what it is, and that's straight up.
Till the rules change.
Yeah. And they might change midway the game.
Fluid.
I wanted to go back to what you said earlier about so many artists dying. And I said it was a reflection of the culture. What influence do you think lyrics and the actual music have on these incidences of artists being murdered, dying, etc.?
I will never blame music for causing someone to commit violence against somebody else. Back in the day, I did a record a long time ago called Self-Destruction, and it was a coalition of artists that came together to bring awareness and also to kind of be a rebuttal to the papers which were saying there was a concert at, I think it was the Dope Jam tour, and some people were killed and a lot of stuff happened. And the papers immediately said that rap music incited it, that it was rap music's fault that this happened. Well, it wasn't rap music's fault. So I'll never blame music for, and so we did that record. But I do think that the what do you call it? The not propagation, but sort of like the encouragement of conspicuous consumerism. Do you know what I mean? Like that your worth is based.
Break that down a little bit.
Well, that your worth is based on what you have, whether it's like diamond chains or cars or watches or
subscribers.
Yeah, anything like
tangible.
that. And I mean, I think that part of the culture that's grown up around hip hop music, right? And not just hip hop music, even any kind of a lot of entertainment things, and that's how people know that you've made it because you have I don't know like cars and watches and this that and the other thing, but people are getting killed for that. Pop Smoke for one. I mean, you know what I mean? He was like, yeah, I've got all this stuff, and he made himself a target. So I think that, and I don't know how this is because right from the beginning of, from the early days of hip hop, I mean, it used to be Kazals. And you know what I mean? It used to be Kazals and...
Get an MPV, you was the man,
I mean, a very famous rapper who used to wear Kazals all the time and Porsche sunglasses got mugged for his glasses at a concert once. So it used to be stuff like that. I don't know what the answer is. I think just how do we instill in young people that it's not what you can buy, it's what's inside of you. And I think it's not just hip hop culture, but
it's a populist culture.
So going back to
Exactly.
the original question of whether the music or lyrics influence maybe violence or whatnot, do you disagree that music does not influence, Kwamé?
I don't disagree. See, a lot of people want to say, music, all right, the science of music. Let's not take the genre out. The science of music, different tones, different rhythms, different cadences, produce different emotions in people. Slow jams make you want to do it. EDM records make you want to, you know what I'm saying? Death metal records make dudes want to jump off stages and surf, crowd surf. Music does influence emotion, no matter how you cut it. So I'm almost certain that if someone is doing an act, whether it's a violent act, whether it's a spiritual act at church, whether it's an emotional act when they're getting married and there's that first song that you walk down the aisle to, or when you're in a funeral and the type of music invokes, they do this on purpose, it invokes tears and emotion out of you. So to answer your question, yes, lyrics, music does influence. And when people go, well, especially they put it on the parent. Oh, if you don't want your kids to be influenced, don't let them listen to it. Like, all right, really? Like, you're gonna stop your kid from walking down the street with their headphones on and listen to whatever they listen to. So I think, but it's a tricky, slippery slope when you really dig into it.
We're gonna take a brief pause. We wanna pause to recognize that Black Alicious, AKA Gift of Gab, legendary rapper, transitioned today at the young age of 50. And we here at the Universal Hip Hop Museum send our condolences and rest in power, Gift of Gab. We're sorry to hear this news. Tragic. Okay, so we're getting short on time. I did want to ask one last question to the panel, and that is, name a song that truly reflects Black music.
I mean, for me, the first thing that comes to mind is A Song for You.
A Song for You?
Yes.
Donny Hathaway, that's the first thing that hit my mind.
A Song for
I gotta
You
agree.
from Donny
Yeah.
Hathaway.
I'm Every Woman, Shaka Khan.
Love TKO. I know it's kind of an odd choice, but
Nah, it's...
that's
what Black music reflects to you. Eric?
Man, that's a tough question. Because, wow. I mean, if you're saying just in general, you know, for me personally, I like anything from James Brown, like Soul Power, records like that gave me like a lot of energy. But then, you know, I guess that would all be based upon the time you were born and what you grew up on. So there's so many different records from so many eras that I could name that represent Black music. So even some songs today. So I don't know, that's a tough call, but I guess I would go with what I initially said about you.
I'm gonna say Marvin Gaye. I'm just gonna put that one out there. Kwamé?
My brain is going like on one side is everything Aretha Franklin. Then on another side, I'm going into Stevie Wonder. But then I keep singing My Adidas in my head. But then on another side, whether you agree with it or disagree with it, I'm thinking of R. Kelly's full catalog. It was like what Black music turned into. And it was a representation of what Black music is, because there's a lot of offshoots of that catalog, that influence today. So, and it has nothing to do with the person who made the music. I'm not talking about the people. I'm talking about the sounds, the sonics, the influences of those. So it's like you were saying, it's like it also depends on what year you were born. Because I'm like, I'm still thinking about my Adidas. I don't know.
Great record.
Yep.
Great record.
This was truly an exciting panel, and thank you for sharing your thoughts on the state of Black music. I'd also like to say thank you to Envoi for providing production and tech support, to Koi Soldier, snapping you photos, and the team at the Universal Hip Hop Museum. For more information on how you can support the museum, please visit uhhm.org. See you soon, and thank you for joining us.